Hello and welcome everyone to this beautiful January 6th of 2024, the first meeting of 2024 here with Daniel Santos today and many others, right? Um, Welcome to this beautiful wintry weather Saturday of January, right? To be expected that we have to face the difficult weathers every now and then in our lives, and that makes us stronger, right, than ever. Tonight, we will have Daniel speaking with us about divine or divine and natural law. Interesting enough, this is a topic that gives us guidance, right? Daniel gives us, it helps us to guide ourselves and to understand a little bit of ourselves as well as God, right? As we understand these laws and how do we work, how do we navigate through our lives um, individually and collectively as well through these laws. But with no further ado, I don't want to get into your topic of tonight. The the room is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo. Thank you very much for already bring this topic to fruition here, right? And welcome everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Depends where you are watching us. I wish I was be able to be there, Leo, but because of the weather, so I have to do this from home. Also, I have a little bit of coffee, something that um, I guess this time in the year a lot of people experience, but I'm here. So the work needs to be done. And with this beautiful topic, right? The divine or natural law. So to begin our conversation tonight, I just wanted to share a little bit here the slide. Um, okay, so I hope you guys can see over there. Yes. So this topic of divine or natural law is a topic that is not new, right? So throughout humankind, this is a topic that the Greeks philosopher has already discussed about. There is also the Catholic Church. A lot of great people in humanity has um, write about and express the idea about what is a natural law or divine law. But today, what we're gonna do, we're gonna see a little bit what was the definition of this divine and natural law under the spiritist teachings, and allowed me to use my slides here. I hope you guys can see it. So yeah, as I mentioned, so those Greek philosophers, especially like Aristotle, Socrates, Plato, they came about of this idea that there is order in the universe, and these orders is not by chance that must follow some pattern, or some type of laws, and that also could be measured, those type of laws. They also established that numerical laws govern all phenomena in the universe, and they also discuss that this law that in life all things must have a purpose. The purpose of life, for example, is to free the soul from the bondage of the physical body. And to do that, they believe that the only way that the soul could, free themselves from the bondage of physical body would be through science or to severe moral practices, as we can see here in this slide. So so throughout, the domain of the Catholic Church as well, we have other figure in religion um, bring some type of dissertation about what would be this natural law, right? So we're not going to go deep on this part, the philosophical part, but what we wanted to discuss tonight is that, as Liu mentioned at the beginning, how the knowledge of these laws could help our lives, could help us to have better relationship, could help us to live better. Um, so since we are talking about laws, the first thing that, of course, um, is a is is good for us to know what laws means, right? Just very quickly, according to the dictionary, laws, for example, is a binding custom or practice of community, rules of conduct or action prescribed or formally recognized as binding or enforced by a controlling authority. So basically, um, law is a set of rules that is created and is enforced by authority from a community, from from a neighborhood, from a country, from a state. So, and this is very important for us because we would not live in harmony if we don't have this set of rules that regulates the way we behave, right? In life, we behave toward one another and in the community. But so one of the questions that we may ask is that does spiritism also touch in this subject of the natural law or divine law? Yes, it touches. And this is in the third part of the Spirit's book. And what we're going to do in the next 45, 50 minutes here is give a little overview about what Kardec has asked the spirit about. What is this divine or natural law? So basically, we're going to see the characteristic of this law, the origin, knowledge, and the division of the natural laws. So very quickly, this is the Spirit's book, was codified and published by Allan Kardec in 1857. And the book is divided in four parts. The first part talks about the first cause, the first cause of the universe, about God, about the creation. The second part talks about the spiritual world or the world of spirits, and is more related to what is a spirit, the process of reincarnation, and everything about the spirit's life and the relationship, the interaction between the spiritual world and the material one. The third part is going to discuss specific about moral laws, and the fourth about hopes and consolations. So when we talk about the divine and natural law, they are located in the third part of the Spirit's book. And here I have a screenshot of the chapter, the book, the part 3, where we can see all the moral laws. So this part 3 is going to cover the divine and natural law, as we can see here, it's chapter 1. And then the 10 laws, moral laws, from chapter 2 until chapter 11. And the last chapter, chapter 12, is going to talk about the moral perfection. So that chapter is basically Kardec asked the spirits about what is a good person, what is to be Christians, good Christian, and those that apply Jesus' moral teachings, right? So there is question and answers. So in terms of the moral laws, it's covered from the question 649 until the question 892, about 234 questions and answers. So we're not going to go through all the moral laws. We're going to just focus on the divine and natural laws, although the moral laws here is embedded in the divine and natural law. So when we talk about the divine and natural law, is the main law, and the other ones is like breaking down of this divine and natural law. So to start about the divine or natural law, let's call natural law from now on, because when we talk about natural or divine is the same, all divine is the same, right? So Kardec asked, what is meant by natural law? And the answer is natural law is the law of God. It is the only law that is truly necessary for human beings to be happy. It shows them, we human beings, what we should or should not do, and we only suffer misfortune when we departed from these laws. So the question now is like, okay, but Daniel, I mean, so if we suffering, but I don't know if I'm infringing the moral laws, or the natural law. So we're gonna discuss this more ahead. But so also one of the things that we need to make clear here is that, as I mentioned in the beginning, so law is pretty much present in everywhere, right? So we have human laws, the laws that we created to regulate our conduct, or our the way we live in society. uh, we have natural laws, laws that govern the phenomena of nature, right? And we may ask, what's the difference between this, the natural law and the human laws? Well, one of the main differences is that the natural law is eternal and is immutable, as God is, because it's created by God. If God is perfect, everything He creates is perfect. Now, the human law is different, right? Human law can be changeable, right? And we see this throughout humanity, that a law, that a set of rules that was accepted a century ago, nowadays not, right? In the same way, we have laws today that we obey. It's not necessarily those laws going to be in place 50 or 100 years from now. Why? Because we change, we progress, and we realize that certain law is makes sense or not, is accepted or not. And in order for us to keep our um, harmonical life in society, and the relation with one another, we need to um, create rules, or set of rules or regulation that will promote harmony, right? Promote harmony among us, and among the relationship with one another, the relationship that we have with nature as well, the relationship we have with animals. So all these need to be in place. So if we stop and think about it, if we stop about something and say, oh, this should not be regulated. Well, but in life, everything is regulated, right? So our family has some set of regulation, right? If you are married, you cannot do whatever you want, right? Without consulting your spouse, and vice versa. And if you are a son or if you're a daughter, you have to follow certain type of rules that is established in your house, right? That your parent, if you go to school, if you go to work. So everything is regulated in the universe. Everything is under a law in the sense of regulation, right? So, and this can be changed, of course, can be changed. But if what we cannot um, think is that, you know, certain thing that cannot be regulated. I mean, what the question is how much regulation we are putting, how much enforcement we are putting, um, regard to to certain thing, right? So this is for us to reflect, as we evolved as human being, we are find um, ways to um, conduct and to regulate better our lives, as well the relationship that we have with our fellow beings, right? So um, moving on, in the question 617, Kardec asked, what do the divine laws encompass? Do they have any reference to anything outside our moral conduct? So they are, Kardec pretty much is asking, okay, what about, things that's not relate to our moral issues, right? And the answer is, all the laws of nature are divine laws, since God is the creator of all things. So if we are in school and we study gravity, for example, gravity is a law that is created by God, right? So may not be a subject that will be discussed in religion setting. It's more discussed in the school setting, right? In university, in college. So law of attraction, right? So it's pertain to the physical realm, right? So and then the spheres continue. Scientists study the laws of nature in the realm of matter, while good people study those of the soul and practice them. Okay, so here is another element that we're gonna discuss later about, when we discuss about law, we are discussing about morality, we are discussing about good, about evil, right? About conduct, so we're gonna see everything is covered under this topic of the divine and moral laws. So now we're gonna talk a little bit about the characteristics of the natural laws. And one of the things that we need to establish from now move forward is that the natural law is based on the harmony that regulates the material and the moral universe, the moral part as well. So every time we think about divine moral law, is those sets of law that govern everything, the material and also our conduct, our moral behavior. These laws, they are written in the book of nature, so they are everywhere. Okay, so if there is, and we believe that because we are a planet that is still not a planet of trial and expiation, we believe that there is even laws that we have not yet conceived, right? Because it's not from this realm. But as we progress, we are learn new ways to regulate um, and to implement rules and behave that will help us to understand and live better in community. So one of the things that we need to establish here is that this natural or divine law cannot be mastered in a single lifetime. So that's why the reincarnation process gives us opportunity for us to learn about the natural law, the divine law. As we evolved, this is going to become more clear and more easy to put in practice, right? So, as we mentioned before in the previous question of this first book, so we have physical laws that regulate the movement of the inert matter, and also it studies belongs to the domain of science. We have moral laws that regulates the life of the soul, the human being, and the relationship with God and with one another, right? So that is like, this is for the didactical way, right? God did not divide this all. This is the physical law. We have the natural law, the divine law, period. And we human beings, in order for us to understand the laws that govern the universe, or the natural law, the divine law, we didactically we start to divide and put in pieces in order for us to understand and to practice those laws. So, with regard to the origin and knowledge of the natural law, the question 619, Kardec asks, has God provided all humans the means of knowing God's law? And the answer is, all may know about it, but not all understand it. So we all have an idea about the divine and natural law. The question here is in the process of understand how these laws work, right? And then he continued by saying, the spirits, moral persons and those who desire to examine this law are the ones who understand it best. Nevertheless, all will understand it someday because such understanding is necessary for progress. Pause. So, one of the things here that in this answer we need to highlight is that understand a law, know about that law, does not give us the authority to practice, but happens, right? So we see a lot of people that has great knowledge of rules, of laws, of regulations, of moral conduct, but in the day to day, they are not able to practice um, those laws, those regulations, right? So that's why the Spirit was very careful in answer this question. All may know about it, but not all understand it. And even those people that understand about, there is another step that is to put in practice, right? And that is the challenge of the immortal spirit. That's why we are here. That's why we come back as much as many times we can to learn how to put in practice. Because how many of us has been studying and knowing about Jesus' teachings, right? About we know we can know the parables, we can give beautiful lectures about the teaching of the master, but when comes that moment to really exercise those knowledge, we still struggle, right? We're still struggling. And that's okay, because as we learn in the book Evolution into Word, um, um, we need to go through repetition, right? Repetition. By repeating repetition over repetition, one day we're gonna master, right? So, and we see this um, in everything, from a child that is learning how to walk, learn how to talk, for a athlete that is learning a sport, for a someone that's learning how to write. So you need to practice so many times, right? So the same thing for us to master the, the and to become one day a perfect spirit. The spirit needs to go through this process of practicing the moral laws, over be put in a situation that we can exercise those laws. So okay, let's go back. um and then beautiful question. Then Kardec had thought about, okay, so now that some people knows, other not, where is God law written? Where is there a place that we can find those law? And the answer is simple: in the conscience. In the conscience. And Kardec was not satisfied and continue asking the follow question. Since human carry God's law in their conscience, why does it have to be revealed to them? Why we need to be reminded about these laws? Why Daniel needs to be here reminded? Why Kardec needs to ask the spirit about that? Why we have people incarnating, prophets, so intellectual people remind us about the conduct, the way to behave well. They have forgotten and disregarded, but God has willed for them to remember it. Well, so when we read this, the first thing that comes to our minds like two things. The first, like, okay, the law is written in our conscience. So why do we need to have people? Why do we need to be reminded? Simple. It's the same way that a child, when is born, this child may has had a previous incarnation that he mastered, like for example, um, the laws of physics, right? But he still need to go to school, have physical classes to be reminded. And that's why when we go to school, we see people that is very fast is getting the information, or they struggle to learn that information, you know, because it depends how much we have been exposed to those laws, to those behave, we may take some time. So that's why when we reincarnate, when we are here, we still need to exercise. We still need to go you know, um, to be educated, not in the physical laws, in the laws that regulate physical the matter, but also the we need to be educated or reminded about how to behave well, how to respect one another, how to live in community uh, and respect the difference between other people, because that's what Jesus did, right? Jesus, when he incarnated, he lived those laws. He lived. His life was um, a perfect example how to put in practice the natural or divine laws, right? So that's why we need to be reminded. And Kardec was okay. I got it. So now let's go and discuss about those people that comes and remind us about those law, the divine law. And that's when Kardec asked about the prophets. Who are those people, right? And when we talk about prophets here, we are not only talk about those men and women that incarnate to bring the moral teaching, but also those that incarnate to bring progress, right? Those professors that, people that dedicate their whole life to education, even if the education was the education, the physical law, right? Not in the moral law per se, because that is also part of this natural law. So the Spirit answered, they are evolved spirit incarnate with the mission of revealing the divine laws. They are moral individual inspired by God. Well, comma here. So when they say moral individual inspired by God, those type of prophet here refer is those that comes to pretty much remind us about the teachings from, for example, Jesus or Buddha, or any religion that bring any we would say anyone that bring those set of principle that resemble the natural law, that is in alignment with the divine laws. So we are not talking about religion, different religion. We talk about the teachings, people that devote their time to remind us about that we are children of God, that we should respect one another, that we should, do the right thing, right? And do the right thing is do things that go according to God's law, or the divine law. 625, very beautiful question. What is the perfect standard that God has offered to humankind as a guide and model? So this question has the shortest answer in the Spirit's book, and the answer is Jesus. So as up to now, we don't know in the future, but up to now, the only human beings that has be here in this planet among us that had displayed how to live in harmony with the divine laws was Jesus. And Kardec makes this comment: Jesus is the highest standard of moral perfection to which humankind may aspire on earth. So he is our modern guide, right? We know this, right? But as we learned previous, the fact that we know does not yet give the authority to practice 100%, right? But we are trying, right? So now what I wanted to do is, inside of this divine or moral laws, there is two subtopic that is discussed. Because every time we discuss about laws or set of rules, we cannot leave aside the issue of what's good, what's bad, what's evil, what's moral, what's ethical, because all this is part of um, this subject, right, of the natural law. So this topic is covered from question 629 to 646. It's 17 questions. But we're not gonna go through all this question because we don't have time. If you wanna, you can go back later and read in the Spirit's book. But I wanted to bring some of those questions that for us for our reflection, because I think is very. I mean, everything is good, but I just like kind of highlight some of those questions for us to discuss. So the first one is regard to morality, right? What's moral here? For example, when we talk about morality, depends what the place and time you are, right? Place and time, right? Because something that was considered moral in the, I don't know, 17th century, nowadays not, or vice versa, right? Um, and and also depends of the location, right? So so when Kardec asked about what is morality, is in the question 639, the Spirit said, and we just like summarize here, is the rule of good conduct, the ability to distinguish between good and evil, and it is found on the observance of God laws. Okay, that's, I mean, I summarize the answer here. The answer is a little bit long, but this is the three things that when we discuss about moral, we need to check those boxes. What is good conduct? Do I have the ability to choose what's good and evil? And if I have, how I use that ability? And where can I find the elements to practice this morality? So the reference is God's law, is the natural laws. Right? So we have the reference, and we may know it, right? We understand those laws. But the question here is when we ask it to practice those laws. So define good evil. The definition of good evil is found in 630, and that's what the Spirit tell us. Good is everything that is in harmony with God's law, and evil is the opposite. Is everything that deviates from it. Okay, I got it, Daniel. But how can I be effective and put those difference away? Well, if God, if and the other thing we should ask here is like, okay, while we are talking about evil, did God create evil? You know, so but the way to distinguish between those two is by using our intelligence. We need to remind ourselves that we are the intelligent being of the creation. As we have been studying Genesis, right? We have, God that created, the intelligence principle, the material principle. So we are the intelligence being of the creation. So we have the elements that will help us to distinguish, discern from what's good and from what is evil. Now, what we need to do is like, we need to, in order for us to do this, we need to, there is a word that just escaped my mind here. We need to have experience now. Is we need to we need to become mature, right, in our evolution, right? So it's like in a lifetime, like if we look ourselves when we're a teenager, the way we see life is not the same when we are in our 60s, 40s, 60s, 40s, 50s, right? So our perception change because we become more mature, right? So we learn more because we experience more diversity. We face different events in life that help us to make the choice. This is good, this is bad, this is not good, this make you suffer, this bring you pain, right? So we are trained on this. So we kind of look at back and we see how much we have um, advanced. I mean, this is like the average, right? We know that there is people that is still like it's not the question of the age, right? But in a theory, in the average, we see that as people get older, they tend to get more mature. Others never get mature, right? They say the opposite is true as well. We see young people that has a good way to see life that, old people, elderly people, yeah, may not have, right? So the intelligence is this capacity, this ability that the spirit has to discern between good and evil. Um, so let us talk about these rules of conduct, right? So in this subtopic of good and evil, Kardec bring um, questions that will help us to understand the rule of conduct toward others and toward ourselves. Because in our society we have rules that pertain to the individual and rules that pertain to the relationship between the individual and others, right? So in the question 632, Kardec asked the question, the spirit answers something like this, okay? Jesus said, do unto others what you would want them to then do unto to you. Sorry about that. The sum that sums up everything. Obey it, and you will never go wrong. Here is what we have been discussed, and we find this in every place that wanted to enforce or to suggest a rules of good conduct is the golden rules, right? So we need to think about before we do or say or we behave. We need to think about if that type of action we would like others to do with us, right? So when we talk about the rules of conduct toward other, this is the recipe. This is the question we need to ask and we need to answer. This is for us to apply and to learn how to live with others, right? So the rules of conduct for ourselves. This is 633. This is the next question. So in that case, the answer is a little bit more elaborate, and I'm gonna read just a summary of the answer. God let us know how much we really need when we exceed it. We are punished by suffering. Natural law outlines for all humans the limit of their needs. If we would always listen to that voice that says enough, we would avoid most of the ills we accuse nature of. So this go in parallel of other questions that we have in the Spirit's book about needs, right? So majority of the time we don't need much to have a happy life, right? But we exceed in our needs, and this behave that we always have to have more things. And this, I'm not talking about only material things, right? Sometimes we wanted to possess people, right? We don't want to give the freedom for our relationship. We don't want to respect the other way that other person. So all this is included here. So we talk about the you know the the best conduct that we need to apply to ourselves is to evaluate how much we need it. And as the answer says here, God let us know. So we have this inside of us that majority of the things that we think we need, we don't. And then when we exceed those needs, then we suffer. When we eat too much, right? Because the food is so good, I want to eat more and more and more, then we're gonna have problem, right? Our body is gonna scream. So it's the same thing here that the spirit is telling us. If we wanted to have a good conduct in our life, we need always to listen to the inner voice. When the inner voice says enough. And this we can apply um, um, for the laws of our physical bodies, right? For our relationships, when we have a relationship that is toxic, there is a moment that we need to say enough is enough. So this is the way we conduct ourselves. Uh, we need to also look at that, if we have habit that's not helping us, we need to listen the inner voice and say, enough is enough. If you are those type of people that, never arrive in the, the right time in your appointment, you always get late, get late, get late, that is a conduct that needs to be corrected, right? And that is something that is impact and can bring you suffering, right? If you have relationships that become toxic, that there is no boundary, and that type of conduct is making you sick, you need to listen the inner voice and say enough. Enough is enough, right? Of course, with kind in our hearts, but need to put a boundary, because we are not even Jesus. He put some boundary, right? We see in his life he was not accepting everything. When he was challenged, he was very kind to answer, but never um, comply with the wrongdoing of that society, right? So this is something for us to think about it, and it's discussed in this. It discussed it in this question 633. So now we ask the question: well, if God is good, if everything He creates is perfect, did God create evil? Kardec asked this question: why do evil exist? 634. Why? Is evil a creation of the Creator, of God? So the answer is God did not create evil, okay? But God gives something that is very important for us to use, and if we don't use well, we may end up in have evil behavior. And this thing is free will. Free will provides experience to learn about good and evil. If we were created already perfect, we would not have any merit in our evolution. So it's very important for us to remind ourselves about our free will, right? How much I can go, how much I should or should not go, right? And every action we are intended to do, we use our intelligence first. The use of intelligence is not more than make an evaluation of the possible consequences we may have if we take or do that action. That's the intelligence is. The spirit has the intelligence to make choices between what is good, what's bad, what is according to God's law, what's not according to God's law, right? And also to use this intelligence to live harmonically, to live well in society. Even if we, in our own interpretation of the law, does not agree with the law. We still need to do our part, right? So, moving forward, another question that we select: is it enough not to do what is evil? Or it is enough, Kardec say, okay, so I'm not in the middle of the revolution. I'm not putting myself in any situation that will create evil. I'm just sitting here in my house doing nothing. Is this okay? And the answer is no. We all must do good to the best of our ability. We will answer for all the evil that has resulted from the good we have left undone. So this is something that we need to be careful, because and we use our intelligence to make this assessment: when I should be proactive, when I should just stay still. And that's why we have intelligence, is for us to make that assessment. But at the end of the day, we always has the opportunity to do something, even if it is small, right? So here I remember that parable of the widow mite, if I'm not mistaken. You can correct me during the question and answer. That Jesus was observing, in the temple, people that was giving money in the temple, and this widow gave just very little, right? Just so much. And the disciples, and Jesus turned to the disciples and said, look, among all those people here that is giving money here to the temple, that widow, she's the one that gave the most. And in terms of material thing, was nothing compared to the others, right? So that is one example that we all have something to give. So that's why in this question, the Spirit answers no. If you don't do nothing, that's not good. You must do good to be accounted, before the divine laws. And if we don't do anything, and there is a consequence of that, a result that thing that was not, you didn't do it, then that would be really, you're gonna be you need to respond for that, right? Okay. um So we almost approach the end. Another question, is there anyone who cannot do any good because of their position? So this is the case of, like, Kardec wanted to know people that has some type of disease or some type of um, impairment, something that um, that not allow that person to do any good. And the answer is only selfish people never find an opportunity for doing so. Doing good does not only means being charitable, but also being as useful as possible whenever your help is needed. So here is something very interesting, because sometimes we have this um, idea that we need to go and do things like in person, right? But here say no. I mean, you can help. We can, nowadays with technology, a phone call, a message, a emoji, for example, right? It's something. So it is the intention that you emit to the universe. And we have been studying about fluids here on a Thursday meeting by study books of Genesis. We see that the fluids require us to be proactive, right? We can manipulate that. A word, a thought, a phone call, a message, even a visit can really make a difference, right? So we all have something that we can do. If we cannot, like, use our strength because, age or because of disease or impairment, but at least we can send our thoughts, right? So there is a opportunity for us to help in some capacity. Okay, now I wanted to move. So we still have more questions on this topic of good evil, but I just wanted to highlight and bring this. So it's important for us to, and this is just for us to recap, to think about, when talk about natural law, about the notion of good and evil, our conduct, what's morality, and we see that everything here, the reference is God laws, right? And when we see human laws try to emulate the natural law, but because we are not perfect individual cannot make perfect law. Oh, sorry, imperfect individuals cannot make perfect laws, right? Only perfect individual can make perfect laws, right? So, but the law that we have nowadays that rules our society, you know, law of community, civil laws, um, penal penal laws, criminal laws, sorry, a law that is try as much as they can to, emulate this natural law. But we are still very far away to really practice the true divine laws that Jesus has brought to us. We have advanced a little bit, but not enough yet. That's why we are still in the planet of trial and expiation. Okay, so now one thing that's very interesting is the division of this natural law. So we remember that we showed in the beginning of our presentation that the partially of the Spirit's book, Kardec has talked about the divine and natural law, but he has divided those laws in 10 laws, right? And but when we look at the way that Kardec created those 10 laws, we can see very clear how Kardec, being a professor, being a educator, put this in a way that really can give to us the key of happiness, right? If we put this in practice. And here we can see that, so in the first point, the first part of the law is our relationship with our creator, right? And then we can attribute this to justice, because the the last law in those 10 moral law is the law of justice, love, and charity, right? So when we analyze those laws, we can see that Kardec create, um, in the first place, laws that has to do with our relationship with our creator. For example, the divine laws and the law of worship, right? So, and then we have a second group of laws that has to do with ourselves. That is my responsibility. That's your responsibility, right? So we have a responsibility with our creator, and then we have a responsibility with ourselves, and then we have a responsibility for others. So if you remember what Jesus said, the two commandments that Jesus summarized, the 10 commandments, was what? Love God, love yourself, and love your neighbor. Right. So it's three, right? But when he said, love God above all things, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Was two, but in the second one has the component that belongs to you and to others, right? Our neighbor, right? So the second one is for ourselves. And here we can see those laws: law of labels, law of reproduction, law of preservation, law of the destruction, moral perfection. We put moral perfection over there, but at least the other laws is law that is our responsibility. We come here to this life to work, right? We can reproduce. If we, the reproduction here is not bloody sense, right? Is exercise our skills, our ability, preserve, preservation, destruction. That has to do with, is our responsibility to do with us. And then those laws that is to do with others, and pretty much is under the ban of charity, law of society, law of progress, law of equality, law of freedom, law of justice, love, and charity. So beautiful the way Kardec organized the laws, these 10 laws, in a way that at the end of the day, you need to check 3 boxes. My relationship with God. What does this mean, Daniel? Your spirituality, how you exercise, how you feed your soul, your relationship with yourself, how you behave, how you conduct, how you feed your body, and the relationship with others, how you live in society, how you do your charity, how we respect others, and how you let other people, have their own freedom, right? So this is beautiful way that Kardec uh, put those laws. So Kardec, as an educator, if we look at the codification, it's not something by chance. Everything for a pattern. As Jesus, when he brought his teaching, is not something that cannot be accomplished. There is a pattern that if you follow, we will get it, right? And we learned that in the third part of the Spirit's book, Kardec called that third part moral law, and later he published a book. He developed those law in a book, right? that we call the Gospel according to Spiritism. And we see the same pattern that all the chapters has a meaning and is direct to three main aspects of our life: our relationship to God, the relationship with ourselves, and the relationship with other. For example, relationship with God that always needs to come first. So we have all this chapter that talk about my kingdom is not of this world, do not think that I have come to abolish the law. Faith can move mountain. Ask and shall be given. And then there is a selection of Spirit's prayer. That's the last chapter. So when we move to the relationship for ourselves, the chapters such as blessed are the afflicted, blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are the pure hearts, be perfect, strange morals, seek and you will find it. So all these chapters talking about the relationship that we need to have with ourselves. That is related to our moral conduct, right? How we should behave, right? And the third part would be the relationship with other. And we can see all this chapter over there. Love your neighbor as yourself, love your enemies, um, honor your father and mother. Without charity, there is no salvation. Um, what else? Do not hide your lamp under the bushel. Freely you have received, freely you give. So all these chapters has a purpose. And that's why the Gospel according to Spiritism bring beautifully Jesus' teachings. The 10 laws that we learn, the moral laws, is Jesus' teachings. So everything is interconnected. Nothing is just like by chance, right? So I wanted to bring this because when we study laws, um, when we study divine laws, we talk about the divine and natural laws. We need to understand that the universe has order, that the universe is harmonical, that if you ask ourselves, and if you have to think about rebellious behavior, you need to think about how the universe was put together. And by reading, by studying, we see that everything is interconnected, right? And at the end of the day, if we are able to check these three box, our relationship with God, the relationship that we should have with ourselves, like respect your body, respect your limitation, as also respect other people's limitation. Make an investment on yourself. There is thing that is difficult for you to do it. Let me try. Repetition, right? And also never forget that the best way for us to evolve is to live in community, is to have, relationship with others as well. So this three box is very important for us to be, at least to try to be in alignment with the natural laws, right? To finalize, I would like to bring this quote that is in the that is in the Medium's book. This is chapter 29, item 355. Kardec is talking about the rules of the spirit society, right? He's talking about rules meetings in the spirit center. And in this item, 350, he mentioned this. What good is to believe in the existence of a spirit if such belief does not make one better, kind, and more accepting of one's fellow being, and humbler and more patient in adversity? He asked a question. And I would like to finalize with this question because we spent like here 50 minutes talking about natural law, divine laws, and doing this overview about Jesus' teachings. But at the end of the day, if we don't check those boxes, if we don't put in practice, if this doesn't make us a better person, then not it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. So with that, thank you everyone. I'll call Leo to come up to the podium and to kind of go over some question, comment about
Daniel,
this
I'm gonna
topic.
let you drive it over there.
Okay.
But beautiful reminder to all of us, right? I think it's one of the best way to start our year. The Spiritual Set of Baltimore, and to remind ourselves of this relationships with God, relationship with ourselves and others, right?
Yeah.
When I say ourselves, I tend to include already myself and others, but we get the point definitely. That is it's certainly a good reminder for all of us. So I'm really happy that you brought this topic. It's not an easy thing, right, to talk about it, and I think you said it really
I would
well.
say that it's not easy to put in press.
It,
It is easy to
exactly.
talking about.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. That
Yeah.
it's interesting because we studied this in Spiritism, and Kardec has really put in such a way for us that it's very, let's say, easy to understand to a degree. And it's I'm glad that we have meetings like this to talk about it, but it's very difficult, extremely
Yeah.
difficult to put into practice because it goes beyond our it's a calling for us to go beyond our nature, and our nature right now is trial and error, right? Our nature right now is not to do the right thing yet, right? So this takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of courage as well to dive within and say, all right, so here it is. What should I do? Where's the wisdom, right? And the wisdom
Yes.
comes from experiences, right? So thank you again for it. Um, I would like to open up then.
Yeah, we have a lot of people here. Iracema, Kirsten, Yasco, hey Yasco from Brazil, Sarah, Alba, Paula, Agnes, Yvonne. Thank you everyone for joining. I know that because of the weather, you guys could not be in the center, but Leo was brave, very brave to be there. Thank you, Leo, with your other friends. I think Jeanette is there and Isabella. But yeah, we have a bunch of questions here
So I
that
see
all the
here.
questions that we have here, I'm gonna refer you to read the Spirit's book. I'm not gonna answer any of the questions. Okay, I'm just joking. Just joking. So okay, Leo. So what do you want me to do? Do you want me to put it here?
I
We
I
have question. The first question is from Yasko.
Fiasco, right? Yeah, it's not letting me
Then we have
publish
Kirsten.
there.
Okay, so yeah, so here's Yasko. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Yasko then comes to us and says, "Hi, Daniel. Good to revisit these topics. Are the moral laws applicable to all beings since their stage of spiritual principles, or just to spirit, i.e., once they start to develop their free will?" Good question.
Yeah. So I think you already answered the question, yes. When they start to develop the free will, then that law is more required, right? So if we go to, it's proportional to the evolution of the spiritual principle, become spirit, and I think you already answered the question. So as we evolved, so the as we evolved, the law, the moral law is and Kardec mentioned this, is the requirement increases as well, that you put that in practice, and is tied to the free will. Yeah. So for example, in rational beings, animals that doesn't have the free will to choose between right and wrong, that just live based on instinct. So that part of the law is not applicable. I don't know if I answer your question, but that's I think you already answering your question. You know, but that's a good reminder.
So I believe we have a question from Kirsten too, right?
Yeah. So question asked. So question, Daniel. Go ahead, Leo. You can read over there.
Yes. So, question, Daniel. According to question 633, those who become sociopath or psychopath, could we say that they fight the sense of enough, and that's why they can act as they do?
Very good question. Well, I don't know. I'm gonna be humble here. I don't know But based on what I have read in the Spirit's book, um, even the worst person has something that can be done. Now, the conduct and the behave that's not according to God's law, yeah, is a disease of that spirit, is a disease of that soul, is a choice, and of course they cannot listen the inner voice, right? So um that would be my you know evaluation upon those type of people that cannot has the sense of enough and continue doing that wrong thing. And we need to put in perspective here that for evil action there is a limit. There is a limit. The person can do horrible thing, but they're not gonna do forever. It's like when we talk about suffering. Let's go. Suffering, there is a limit. You're not gonna suffer forever. We're not gonna be in. I mean, we may choose to stay in that for a long time, right? It's a choice, but it's not gonna be forever, right? Our destiny is to be happy. May take many century, millions of years, yes, but we're never gonna be stuck in the evil action. So a movement is gonna happen for us to move if you don't want it to do that, right? A great example of this, we always mention about this. You have the free will to stop in the middle of the highway just because you want to. You want to be a rebellious person. But at some point, the police is gonna come, the tow car is gonna come, and it's gonna tow away. You're gonna get a ticket, you're gonna be arrested. So the divine law also has mechanism that will help you know the the human beings, the humanity to progress. We may decide to delay, but at some point we need to move on. That's the natural order of the universe. Imagine if the planet Earth decide, oh, guess what? I don't want it to continue spinning or have, you know, follow the rotation around the sun. Just give an example. This cannot be happen because the divine law is so perfect that there is no margin for error. If we are under this divine law, whatever we are doing here that we consider evil, like for example the sociopath, the people that really do nasty thing, evil thing in our planet, it still is inside of their free will. Their free will is not absolute. So with me, at some point, that free will is gonna be taken away, and he need to rethink about that, about the act, right? I
And
hope.
Daniel, I think I know that
Go ahead.
this is a great um, let's say a very extreme example that Kirsten wrote, and I think this is a great example. But if we take a step back and we look at how, as you mentioned, the mechanism of these natural laws they work, right? And you think about how somebody will stop in the middle of the highway, and we can do that. We can delay our lives as well, right? But then when we talk about the how they work together in terms of the natural laws that you brought, right? And you think of the law of society that if you have a loved one inside of your car that
Mm-hmm.
in fact is part of the law of society, you're going to think twice before you stop, right?
Yes,
Because the consequences may not be just towards you, but towards those that you love, right? So then you start
correct.
weighing the consequences a little bit more. Yes, that is in a more elevated way of analyzing these laws without knowing them or not. But it goes hand in hand with what you said as well in terms of, look, we understand that the sun is going around the sun. I'm sorry, that the earth is
The
going
earth.
around the sun, but we don't have a way to do it. We don't have a way to stop, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even if we were at this point, I would like to believe that if we would like to do such a thing, guess what? We know that it's like, wait a minute, God is great. Whether we believe in God or whatever force is doing this towards us is greater than my capability. So that in itself, it is a mechanism, part of the mechanism, right? So when we start
Yes.
thinking about these things, you're like, wow, so the reason I'm saying all this is because the more we dive into it with ourselves, we don't have to go too far. The more we get to know that, wait a minute, this is beautiful, right? And it's so
Mhm.
free instead of, because we think of rules, it's more like, oh my gosh, I feel so, you know, um, entrapped in this life, in this body, but it's freeing actually. It's the opposite.
Yes, yes. Oh, good point, Leo. Yeah, I agree with what you said. Let's go back here for the question. We have a couple of questions to go. This is from Sarah.
Hello, Sarah. And Sarah says, what about people that are mentally disabled and don't know how to do good? Excuse me. Will they answer for all the evil that has resulted from the good left undone?
Very good question. And I think I was looking here, our question go to the same way, but let me address this. Good point. Good point. So what we need to, when we talk about, so this teaching, these general teachings, right? It needs to be analyzed case by cases. So in this case here, um, we need to see our life, the life of that spirit, not as a single life, right? So when we talk about the laws, the divine laws and natural law, they are timeless. They don't have time. The law is that way in the beginning of the creation, 100 years ago, today, and in the future. It's unchangeable, right? So here, let's analyze this question about someone that has mental disabled, right? In this lifetime, the person is mental disabled because it's already probably has to do with some type of test or expiation. We don't know, right? But we all come with some type of limitation, right? So at this moment, what that person can be responsible is what that person offer in that particular moment, right? So even if you are mentally disabled, and let's picture a case here. For example, if we see like a child that really cannot, doesn't have the cognitive, the process of cognitive process in place, but that child, maybe they can smile, you know they can do some type of thing that is you know wakes up someone that's sad, right? Or the eyes, or I don't know. So I'm just saying that when we analyze this, we should analyze case by case. Of course, if the person is mentally disabled, in that lifetime, they are responsible only for that lifetime they are living. But when we look at in the single life that we have, that the single life, I mean, like, since we have been incarnate and discarnate, incarnate, we need to look at that in that aspect as well, right? But I think this, when we study this, we there is certain situation that made this law, like for example, as she said, will the answer for all the evil that has resulted from the good left undone? Well, if the person is mentally disabled, it's almost impossible to do evil because they are mentally disabled, right? But let's pretend that the person do something that cause harm. The person is going to be responsible for that, even if they are labeled as mental disabled, right? So we need to analyze the situation. We cannot like just like enforce this teaching and say, oh, you're responsible for that. So I think go case by cases. But at the end of the day, the question is, if we are in a position that we are mental disabled, mental impaired, and we need to look at our action. And sometimes there is even Jesus, when Jesus came and mentioned that we sin even with our thoughts, right? We know in spirituals we don't believe that we are sinner, but we can do evil just by thinking about evil. We are doing already, right? So in that case, you know, nobody is completely, totally mentally disabled. If that spirit is still have a way to think, to send their thoughts to the universe, right?
Daniel, can I add something real quick,
Yeah,
if
go
I may,
ahead.
please? I think this is a great question, Sarah, because it shows us how perfect God is, how great God is. And I would like to go back to, you don't have to bring it up, Daniel, the two last slides that you had in terms of justice, right? In terms of a connection with God. And going back to the question, it's like we are not made, God does not make us mentally ill
Mhm.
or ill,
Yes.
right? We become ill. We become disabled. We disable ourselves through the moments that we go over those callings of nature saying enough is enough, right? And God is so great that God gives us the condition to repair our ill state, meaning again progress, right? We will again here going back, to the law of progress. So are we responding later or at that moment to the things that we could be doing, but we're not because we're ill? Yes, right? And later on, we will realize in naturally that we'll go back and say, you know what, I should have done this. I spent time, in convalescence, right? Or, taking care of myself where I could be doing other things. It's much like ourselves when we hurt ourselves, right? And then we have to go through that moment and, in bed or something. And we're saying, I don't want to stay in bed anymore. I want to do something else. I want to do something greater, with my life. So we can take ourselves and think about the same way. And these individuals, us, and when I say, these individuals, we are ill. We're still not, perfect yet. We'll snap out of it and we'll say, wow, I can do more. And that's why sometimes we see a lot of people. I would give one of the greatest example, Paul, right? Before was Saul, and he was ill. And until he became somebody who said, I can do better with my time, right? I think that is a great reminder because again, we see the grandeur of God in our relation with God. Sometimes we think it's a punishment that we see our brothers and sisters in such a situation that they're ill, and we're like, well, why God does this? But again, I thank you for the question, and Daniel, you answered extremely well, and I just want to add that so that hopefully it makes our relationship with God much better.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Yes. So I forgot to add this component that you just said about our responsibility, right? And our action doesn't end. Whatever we do today does not end with death of the physical body. The consequence of our deeds stay for our, you know, immortal life. And when we become more evolved, we're gonna look at those experience. We're gonna see not with remorse, not with, but we're gonna see as just a process, as we are learning to become perfect one day. Good question. I wanted to go a little bit faster, Leo, because of time. Alba, question 643, for a sick person or someone with severe physical and mental limitation, helping him or herself to improve or get better will be enough to do good as in is this selfish? Oh, very good question, Alba. No, because in that three box, the first, second, and third, so it's very clear we need to work in our relationship with God, our relationship with ourselves. So willing and work for us to get better, even if it is for our disease physical body, is not a selfish thing. Because in order for us to do the third part, we need to first work in ourselves. So Jesus said, love God above all things. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. So before you love the neighbor, you need to love yourself. So in that case, if the intention to improve yourself is so you can you can help in the creation, you can help in the society, so then it's not selfish. So everything is in the realm of the intention. Why you want to become better? Because you want to become better, because you wanted to go back, you wanted to do your part in the creation, so you wanted to feel good, right? There is nothing wrong with that. In fact, this is one of the box in our evolution that we need to check. We need to be very careful not to fall in the guilt realm, because then we may think, oh, with the victim box, right? As Leo explained very well, we are not here to. God does not impose any suffering on us, and if we find ourselves going through a very difficult time, it's a moment of reflection to ourselves, right? And thank you for the question. I think this question is very very appropriate with the topic, and I guess I hope I answer your question. Move to the next one. Thank you, Alba. Leo, you wanna read?
Paula Smith says, in high school, a nun told me not to hide my light under a basket, which made no sense to me. And when she explained it, made me nervous. Hence, we need to educate courage.
I was wondering what she told you. Now you need to tell us what she told you that make you nervous, right? But Paula, that's what the nun said is what we learn with Jesus teaching, right? So we should not hide our skills, our the good that we already have, that we have already acquired. If we don't share this with others, then we are like the parable of the talents, right? So, but
This
thank you
this
for
is
the
a
comment.
beautiful thing. Also, experiencing kids, for example, when they come to us and they're so excited for of a drawing that they did or something that they did, right? It's so natural of them, so beautiful of them, of talking about what they have created, right? It's a beautiful
Mm-hmm,
thing, and I think we go into this idea of kind of diminishing ourselves, right? Over time, and we don't boast about ourselves doing great things, doing good things, right? And when I say great things, is leading a good life. We need to talk about it, right? We need to talk the outcomes of our trials, right? I think this is very important because this is part of not hiding the light under the bushel or
mm-hmm,
under the table. Sometimes we think it's about, oh, I'm going to brag about myself. No, I'm not talking about brag, but making the environment where we live better, right? I did this. I was able to accomplish this. Or better yet, when we say we were able to accomplish this, right? Together,
mm-hmm,
because you were supporting me, I was supporting you. And I think this is a great thing that we can. I think that the world would be in a much better place now if we were to do that more often.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, let's go back here. Thank you, Paula. um, I just want to say I think this was a wonderful and very interesting topic. Thank you, thank you, Agnes. Andrea Marshall, say hi, guys. Okay, okay, okay. Alba, thank you for putting this together. What a great foundation to start a new year. Yeah, I think yeah. So when I was thinking about what we discussed here, so that was inspiration, right? Uh, very good topic. I like silence in our question. I look forward to the answer. Okay, we have a question here by Andrea. Can we truly grasp the meaning of each natural law? Not in one lifetime. So this question, this was already answered, and thank you, Andrea, for asking the question. So the natural law, one of the things that we need to have in mind is that they cannot be totally understand one lifetime. But of course, as we moved, we can start to learn about it, right? So I believe that when we look at humanity, when you look at some individuals in our planet, we can truly see that that individual already grasped almost the 10 laws. Like Francis of Assisi, for example. Right? One example here, right? He definitely he grasp, he understand all the meaning of each of those laws, right? And many of people that we have seen aside of Jesus as a someone that we could emulate, we could like that becomes a model for us, even though they are not perfect yet. But yes, Andrea, so we can, but not one single lifetime. Okay, I
Daniel,
guess. Go ahead.
can I just add one thing here? And
Yes.
I, I I know this is not a good thing to a degree, okay? And because the book is not yet in English, hopefully it will be soon. It is something that I know it's in the work. But Joana de Angelis, through the hands of Divaldo, Divaldo Franco, has a beautiful book called As Leis Naturais da Vida, The Natural
Hmm.
Laws of Life, that goes over all the natural laws. And it's an amazing book. It's very little talked about, but it's an amazing book that explains each of the laws, and she gives examples as well, on how we can exercise them. Again, it's an amazing book. For those who speak Portuguese, you can look for As Leis Naturais da Vida. In English would be The Natural Laws of Life.
Hmm.
And hopefully, again, this is a calling for the help
Yeah.
from the beyond and us as well to put this work in English, because I think it would be a great advancement for society if we had in English, and publish this, to our brothers and sisters, who speaks English as well. But it does help, at least to me, in this idea of learning a little bit more, getting a little bit closer to understanding better this idea of the natural laws. Thank you.
Mm. Okay, now good. Look, we Leo, I think our time is up. We should have a couple of comments. I'm gonna go very fast. Vladimir, thank you, Daniel. Iasko, I thought some natural law, like law of progress, destruction side, may be applicable to plant. Yeah, Iasko, you're right. Yes, though animals also is under, but it's not when we talk about uh the moral laws in the sense of conduct, right? So them is when you have the free will. But in this case, those law is law of nature. Yeah, is applicable to the destruction society. Even like, for example, the law of attraction is applicable for you know stones, for example, right? Because that is a law over there that bind the molecules together, right?
This
So, but
answer is
but
also this question is also answered in the while we're studying the uh, uh, law of labor,
yeah,
that Kardec
the
explained. The spirits explains
the
that
animals,
animals, they work, they
yeah.
labor, not in the level that we do, but they do their
Exactly.
labor in society. Yes, very good
Yes.
question.
Yeah, very yeah. Sorry. Maybe my answer didn't, did not, yeah, but okay, so one here from our friend from Australia. My question is, what about people who choose to use drugs when their behave on those drugs hurt their loved one? Is our is our punishment or our choice to have this happen? Both, right? If I drink and drive, the consequence of an accident that will kill someone or hurt them. So it's the responsibility of the person because the person had in the choice to not do it that, right? So I guess to answer your question, yes, both. I mean, uh, one thing that we need to clarify here is that spiritism does not teach us that we incarnate to harm people, right? Oh, that was, in reincarnation plan that this person incarnated specifically to do this and to kill that person. So that's not the way it works. Nobody reincarnate to um, um, do an act that we cut other people's life or hurt other people. Like, nobody incarnate to with the mission to kill someone, even that person is someone very evil. That's not our responsibility. This is God's divine laws, right? So what we need to do it. So we need to um, behave, but not cross the boundary that is regards to justice that is implied, that is um, in the divine laws, right? So I think, Leo, we are pretty much done. Iracema, top great. La, la, la. Thank you, Iracema, for your comment. Vladimir, thank you, Daniel, for explaining. Well, I just like repeat what's in the Spirit's book, right? I hope was clear. I mean, of course, I there's 234 question in this subject of divine laws, moral laws. We just brought, you know, no more than, I don't know, 8 or 10, but it's something that we need to read in the study, understand, and if possible, put some practice. Leo, I guess I'm done here, Leo.
I
Any other
thank you,
thing? Any
Daniel,
final
for.
comment?
No, well, I would like to say to thank you again, and I'll take Alba's words here and say this is a great way for us to start the year, and to give us, to get us closer to God, to get us close to ourselves and to one another, right? As the the little way for us to remind ourselves, is that beautiful passage that you brought here. You mentioned several times, love God above all things, love our neighbor as ourselves. So great motto for us to start this year and to give a continuation when we are called to the divine, to apply the divine law. So thank you, and we'll hope to see you soon again, and discussing different topics and getting ourselves better. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo. Thank you very much.